we always hear all skin folk and kin folk, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's like, race definitely plays a part because you have to understand what you're getting yourself into. What's going on? I'm AK.
My name's Amelia.
Hey, I'm Sammy.
I'm Lee.
Do you prefer dating outside your race or not?
I prefer dating outside of my race because I might be related to a lot of Filipinos, you know? You've seen a lot of Filipinos, you're like, oh, that's my cousin right there.
I like sisters. So, like, that's like, not with the whole relation thing, but, like, I prefer to date inside my race.
I prefer to date outside my race just because, like, I have a lot of opinions that are fairly radical and not a lot of white men share them, and I like to date someone that I'm similar to or who I have similar opinions to, and they're very, very hard to find, and I don't have time to do all that emotional labor.
Race isn't the primary driver of whether or not I'm interested in somebody. Like, it's just never been the primary driver. But that's just me. So.
Why is it that you don't like dating outside of your race for you, Sammy?
I don't know, it's just what I feel more at home with, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean, like, you're, like, turned off to, like, any other person that's, like, not black, but it's just, like, you know, I'm at home. It's just, like, for example, like, being black or being Asian or being white, there's certain things that come with being that. And, like, for me, what makes me comfortable, like, when I come home or, like, I speak to someone about my experiences, we have, like, that same ground. And that's, like, a very important foundation for me.
The preference is, like, loose for me. Like I said, yes, I like to date outside of... I'd rather date outside of my race because of those complications. But honestly, if I vibe with you and I like who you are and you can support me financially, romantically, sexually, then...
Why not?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not a matter of, oh, you're this race, I'm gonna date you. Like, it's just... It's a thing I keep in mind when I'm trying to look for someone, you know, because
Okay, so like when you're choosing a partner, is race a factor that you would put in?
I have, like, a thing about that because who we like doesn't come from nowhere. So especially as a white person, I think it's super important to do, like, and understand your desirability politics, because a lot of people who enter into interracial relationships, often they, like, objectify or fetishize or even tokenize their partner without realizing it.
That's right.
And, like, also because it's kind of become trendy to be in interracial relationships, but a lot of white people who enter into these relationships don't seem to understand or talk about race at all with their partner, and how their experiences are going to differ and how there's going to be a power dynamic. Like, at the end of the day, if I have a black husband, when he drives on the road and he gets pulled over by a cop, the cop isn't going to ask if he has a white wife. All he's going to see is that he's a black man. And that, at the end of the day, is what's going to dictate his experiences. And so I understand that there's a level of similarity that I can't reach if I'm dating someone that is a different race. But does that mean I can't connect with them and love them with all my heart and do inner work and understand, okay, this is why I'm attracted to them, and it's not on the base of stereotypes or wanting to seem cool. It's because, hey, I love who they are, but their race is also a part of their humanity, which I think is something that's often left out of those conversations.
When it comes to, like, choosing a partner, that's, like, one thing that worries me a lot, because, you know, like, I didn't, like, spend the majority of my life in Canada. I spent it down in Atlanta, and it's just, like, you know, like, if I am to, like, reproduce with, like, a white woman or an Asian woman or whatever, that child's gonna come out phenotypically like me. Mm-hmm. And it's just, like, if it's in a case where I'm not there and, like, my child goes through something based on the color of their skin, like, how is she going to be able to handle that?
I think the best thing you can do with interracial dating is that you just have to, like, be able to empathize and understand where they're coming from as their partner. Race doesn't have to come into your relationship. It's just two people getting together.
Wait, I actually got a question for y'all. Like, have you guys all been in, like, interracial relationships?
I think that, like, that's an important question to ask, because especially interracial relationships in the media, it's a very staunch stereotype of what a black man can be. He's an NBA player, he's a rapper, he's a football player, and the girl's an Instagram model, or she's, you know, Kim Kardashian. So there's a very linear idea of, even when we see representation of interracial relationships, it's only that. So I understood and did the inner work to understand how my desires to be with other people are influenced by how I was raised.
We always hear all skin folk ain't kinfolk, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's like, race definitely plays a part because you have to understand what you're getting yourself into, because while you may not be primarily concerned with it, the rest of the world is not on the same page as you, right?
Like, regardless of your preference, like, some people, like, might feel, like, swayed or, like, might be, like, frowned upon for, like, looking at the other way. It's like, in your case, like, maybe your parents, like, that's not, like, that's foreign to them. They don't like that. But, like, in the black community, it's, like, something that's, like, you don't love yourself if you date, like, another race, where it's just, like, you know, that's not even a question, that's my choice. And whatever you choose, like, it should be respected as such.
So my question to you guys would be, do you think it's your responsibility, or how would you go about educating those people in your life who may sway your decision to date someone outside of your race? And how would you go about that activity? How would you educate them and educate even just the people around you or not around you? And do you think that's your responsibility?
I think the onus should be on white people who are entering interracial relationship, or at the end of the day, the person who is less oppressed or the person who holds the upper hand in that relationship, because ultimately they're the ones who aren't losing anything.
I wouldn't be so quick to say, like, white people, like, it's like the onus is on them. It's a relationship, meaning that it's two people. So, like, if I were, like, to go to your home, I'm not trying to, like, win over your grandmother for black people. Like, you know, she has her experiences, like, you know, I'm not there to change that. But one thing I'm there to do is to make sure she respects me for me. I've had girls tell me, like, oh, I'm not into black guys. Like, I don't need you to be into black guys. I need you to be into Sammy.
The way I see it, it's not my job to educate anybody. If you feel how you feel, it is what it is. And I take this, like, this is just like how I live in general. I'm not going to give advice unless you come ask me for it. I'm not going to give you education unless you come ask me for it. So it's like, at the end of the day, I'm not going to go out of my way to educate anybody or try to educate anybody, because we've been trying to educate people for a very long time and it's not yielded any results. I personally don't care how they think, whatever's going on. Great, that's how you want to live your life. Live it, as long as it doesn't interfere with how I'm living my life. As long as it's not making things harder for me, do whatever you want. But once it becomes a problem, you don't even have to educate. You just got to be able to set boundaries and be like, look, whatever you got going on, don't bring that over here. They're gonna live how they want to live. It's none of my business.
I'm gonna disagree on the point where you don't feel like teaching people, because if you're gonna involve yourself with someone romantically and, like, you're gonna be in their lives a lot of the time, I feel like you need to communicate the facts of what, like, where you come from and what your family's ideals are, because at one point you gotta marry that person, no? I mean, unless
If that's the end goal, right?
yeah, exactly. But, like, ultimately that's the end goal, and, like, you have to communicate that, like, hey, my parents might be a little, like, racist. Just communicating with your partner about what your family is going to be like, or who you're involved with, is something that I prioritize in my life.
Yeah, even that's even like a respect thing too. Just like giving them a heads up. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to walk in and be blindsided now you're sitting at dinner and
Yeah, exactly. So they can take it how they want it, but, like, I'm letting you know that if my parents say, like, do this shit, like, honestly, take it how you want it. You can walk out, it doesn't matter. Just, yeah, if you want to be with me, be with me.
So to throw that question to you guys, have you guys ever been in a situation like that? Where you would just leave the situation, you just not pursue the relationship because you felt they weren't good enough to bring to your parents?
Yeah.
The thing is, like, it starts with you. It starts with how you interact with that person. If you can't have an educated conversation, or just, like, have a conversation that you enjoy, then what's the point of bringing them to your parents?
Love is not enough out here. Love don't pay bills. You cannot love blindly just because they look good and they make you feel good. That is not enough. I think out of, like, all the things we're talking about, I think a good head on their shoulders is, like, the most important part. Like for me personally, if, like, my girl didn't go to school but she started a business, if I already know, like, all right, this girl has a plan, like, yeah, it's not the most conventional thing, but, like, she's smart and she's well spoken and I know she can hold her own, then, like, yo, like, that's someone that's definitely worth, like, introducing my mom to.
I've never really had a problem with introducing people to my parents, because I've never had, like, a formal relationship, but, like, guys would come to pick me up and my parents would say hi to them or they'd come over. My parents were like, oh, there seems to be, like, a trend in who you're dating, you know, why is that? So it was more of a push for me to kind of explore reasons behind what I was doing and why, which I am thankful for because that's super important. But in terms of like who I'm bringing home, at the end of the day, like I'm dating them, and I think like social class doesn't mean anything to me, because ultimately, like, if we can hold a conversation, kind of like what Sammy said, like, if I know, like, we vibe well and, you know, you're intelligent and we have similar opinions on things, as long as you are ambitious and you're not, like, sitting on your ass doing nothing, just waiting for me to provide for you, then that's a problem. But ultimately, like, if you have a plan and you have ambitions and you're out there getting it no matter what, then where you come from seems to be irrelevant.
So I'm really lucky. Like, I got parents that are like mad, like they're so progressive if you look at it compared to like the other parents in their age where they're from. But yeah, like I'm never really worried about bringing anybody home, because at the end of the day, in my family, the way that we are is we're all like really, really, really close, and everything flies in the house. So it doesn't even matter so much like what the person looks like. Everybody's getting joked on regardless, so it matters more like, can you take the jokes? My little brother's girlfriend, he's 16, he has his girlfriend is white and Jewish. And it's like, literally, when she came into the house for the first time, I was sitting in the house, and in my brain, I was like, let me just see how this plays out. And my mom's like, hi, like, you know what I mean? My mom's like, yo, keep in mind, like, Hanukkah's coming, you know what I mean? Like, she's like on top of it. My parents are on top of that. So I'm really, really lucky. Like, my parents are like, locked in and they get it and they understand it, but in the same way, like if you know that your parents are not like that, it's kind of just like it depends on how much you're willing to deal with and how much your partner's willing to deal with in order to make it work. If y'all aren't willing to deal with all the comments and the prejudice and whatever, then maybe it's not, maybe it shouldn't happen. But if you're willing to deal with it, if you're willing to stick to it, if you're willing to go through whatever you got to go through, then go ahead, you know.